Without
Yes, yes. No
losing
problem.
time, I would like to welcome uh, Professor L. Elango sir to deliver his lecture. L. Elango sir, he is the head of geology, Anna University, Chennai. So now
Thank you. I
it's
think
you.
thank you very much for the nice introduction. To
Thank you so
save
much,
time,
sir.
I'll start.
Yes, sir.
Sorry for being a bit late. Right. I'm happy to be with the FM University. It is my proud and privilege. Is the Vice Chancellor now. Unfortunately I missed to talk to her in the inaugural program. I'm going to take another 35 or 40 minutes, or sorry, about 20 to 25 minutes of my presentation, which is going to be on some aspects related to hydrogeology. I hope you are able to see my screen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Uh,
It is.
I would like to, uh, it is visible.
Yes, sir. It's visible.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is visible, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I will share my experience on some of the advanced techniques that are in use in hydrogeological research. Right? Why hydrogeology is very important, especially for the budding geologists. Right? You know, life is always dependent on water, and we know 97% of the fresh water that is available today with us is in the form of groundwater. All of us have heard about that. Hence, groundwater is extensively used all over the world, right? As you can see here, and especially because of the recent advancement in drilling as well as pumping technology, as well as the technology which we have today to understand the subsurface geology, right? Tremendous improvement and exploitation of groundwater, increase in exploitation of groundwater has started in the recent decades. This has led to really unsustainable use. What do I mean by unsustainable use? That means we are overusing groundwater. That means whatever water that got recharged during the last year, we are using much more than that in the current year. So this leads to widespread depletion of groundwater resources. In fact, a study carried out by this group of people indicate 20% of the world's aquifers are being overexploited. So this also leads to other issues such as deterioration in groundwater quality. All of you, those who are participating today, you would have certainly experienced in your lifetime deterioration in groundwater quality. So we need to reverse all these trends, which requires tremendous amount of research and participation by all of us. Right? Hence, we have got a tremendous responsibility ahead of us, especially the geologists who play a crucial role in this. Right? Hence, I chose this topic. Right? As you can see here, a paper published in the Nature indicates the widespread depletion of groundwater resources all over the world. This is much more pronounced along the equatorial region. You can see all the black towers indicate the quantum of depletion of groundwater resources. The scale is given here. The higher skyscrapers indicate over extraction of groundwater. If you see in India, we are overusing groundwater, especially the same is also true in America. Right, so this indicates groundwater depletion is a widespread phenomena. Right? We carried out a study some time ago in which we had seen how groundwater is being overexploited in coastal parts of India based on about 1,000 observation wells. Right, the study indicated right there is a widespread depletion in groundwater resources. within a decade. We compared the data of 2007 and 2017 that indicated that there is a depletion in groundwater resources. You can see all the red marks here where the groundwater table is below the sea level, right? That means below -3 meters, right? So you can, on the right hand side, you can see the area which we have lost for seawater intrusion. So why I am showing you this is depletion is a major issue, not only in the world, but very particularly in India. Right. Large amount of groundwater is also being used by various people, right? So there is always a conflict between groundwater and human, right? All our activities lead to several changes in the hydrological cycle. One is runoff, infiltration. They are very much affected by our activity. That means we start constructing a road, so thereby we are reducing the recharge. As an example, I'm telling you. And even the quantum of rainfall which we receive is also influenced by human. That means we are influencing the climate. For example, the emission of large amount of greenhouse gases lead to change in the atmospheric temperature, changes in the pattern of rainfall which we get. So water, a large amount of water we completely utilize, most importantly for irrigation purpose. In our country, we know 80% of the irrigation is sustained by withdrawing groundwater. So water which we have used for irrigation, part of it goes as evaporation, the other part goes as a recharge. So we get back part of the water, but most of the water is lost due to evaporation. Right. Apart from that, we also consume water. For example, the irrigated area, large area is irrigated. Plants consume water. Right. Also, in our house, we consume part of the water which we use. That means we pressure cooker this along with the steam, water escapes. So there is also water, a quantum of water which we have is also completely consumed. Right. Human interaction also leads to shifting of or changing of groundwater resource from one area to the other area. For example, if we produce some food at one particular place, the food is transported, along with that water is also getting transported to another area. Right. So that means the region where the food was produced, that region has lost the water. That means that part of the water only goes in, but other part of the water is used by the plants or goes up as evaporation. And human interaction also certainly results into deterioration of groundwater quality. So these are all some of the bigger issues which we are facing today. Let me go into how much of water we are also lost by shifting. That means virtually we lost so much of cubic meters of water, approximately 30 billion cubic meter of water per year. That means how we export our food. So on one hand, we say economy need to survive, so we need to encourage export. At the same time, if you see the graph here, on the left hand side, you see for tea, coffee, how much of coffee we have imported, along with that, how much of water we have imported. On the right hand side here, you can see how much of food products we have exported. Here on the bigger graph, I am showing you the net change in the quantum of water which we have exported and imported. So here it says we are actually we are exporting about 30 million cubic meter of water. So we also need to see the virtual water which we are losing every day. What are the way out? What are all the various advanced techniques that are available today for us to study hydrogeology? I will start from the simplest method. The simplest method, most of you, especially the masters or bachelor students who are attending today, know electrical resistivity method is considered to be one of the simplest method that can be used to understand the subsurface in terms of hydrogeological study. Why resistivity methods? So if you look at the fundamental of resistivity method, which I'm sure most of you know, whereas on the right hand side, a small graphics which says there is a direct relationship between the resistivity of the formation and hydraulic conductivity. This is what we make use to understand how much of water is able to move beneath the surface of the earth from the resistivity measurements. Once if you understand hydraulic conductivity, there exists a relation between hydraulic conductivity and porosity. So from electrical resistivity, we can understand approximately, right? Not precisely. We will be able to know what will be the hydraulic conductivity of the formation, what will be the porosity of the formation. So electrical resistivity method is the simplest method that is available today with us to understand the subsurface. So in electrical resistivity method can be operated in different ways in the field, right? One of the simplest among that is the vertical exploration or vertical exploration sounding VES, right? Or depth sounding, in which what we are going to do is we are going to extend the distance between the electrodes. So you can see on the picture electrode A and B, which are called as current electrodes. We are going to increase the spacing between them. The idea of increasing the spacing is if you increase the spacing between the electrode A and B, the depth of penetration of the current will increase. So indirectly, what we try to do is by vertical electrical sounding, we try to understand how the electrical resistivity vary beneath the surface of the earth. You can extend the same method to carry out survey on two-dimensional way. That means along a profile here, as you see along a profile, you can do vertical electrical sounding at several points. So at the end, you have vertical variation beneath the surface at different points. So if you extrapolate the information, you get a tomogram. That means you get a cross section along which how the vertical electrical sounding, how the electrical apparent resistivity vary beneath the surface of the earth. So using which you get the image of the subsurface. That means resistivity image of the subsurface, using which you can understand about the occurrence of groundwater as well as the various geological formations. So here is an example in which we carried out profiling in the coast near Chennai, right? We have Bay of Bengal on the right hand side of your screen. You can see all the blue patches which indicate intrusion of seawater, right? All the red patches at the bottom is the basement rock, which is charnakite, which is occurring at a depth varying from 20 to 40 meters. So this is how the image helps us to understand how the resistivity is varying beneath the surface, using which we will be able to characterize the aquifer system. Not only that, we will be able to understand about the quality of groundwater beneath the surface. Right? We did that at several profiles. As an example, I am showing you, right, using which we will be able to demarcate the region affected by seawater intrusion as well as the location of weathered charnakite, massive charnakite, and so on. We can extend the same technology to understand the variation beneath the surface on a three-dimensional domain. Right? What I showed you previously is the information along profiles. If you carry out profiles at closer intervals, we can get a three-dimensional image as you see at the bottom here, right? Something like this, using which you can understand the fingering effect. We used to call, so seawater may not intrude everywhere uniformly. That obviously depends on the geological condition that prevail there. Wherever you have coarser sediments along which more seawater will tend to intrude. So that also we can understand by extending what we saw on the previous page into three-dimensional topography. So all the things I showed you are all published. You can have a look at it if you want to have further details, right? We can also do something like fence diagram. Many of you are familiar with the fence diagram we used to do in the class using the borehole information. So here we are getting information about the vertical variation in apparent resistivity. We can use that to prepare electrical resistivity fence diagram. This we did for a proposed uranium mining site in Telangana, using several about 70 vertical electrical sounding we did, using which we can prepare such nice images as you see here. Using that, again, we can prepare a three-dimensional model of the subsurface based on the resistivity. We can also do what is known as inverse modeling. That means if the resistivity of the formation is this much, what is the likely type of geological formation that is going to exist there? So using this inversing technique, we can decipher different geological formations beneath the area of our investigation. However, always we have to exercise caution. We have to verify our interpretation with some field observations. At least one or two observations are necessary for us to check whether we are on the right direction or not. So this is with regard to electrical resistivity methods. Then another technique that can be used to understand aquifers at a regional level. What I showed you previously is at a local, a small area, about 10 square kilometer area or 100 square kilometer area can be investigated by field visits using resistivity. Another technique that can be used is electromagnetic methods. So electromagnetic methods are very handy to cover a very large area. However, this requires tremendous investment. Approximately about 100 square kilometer area will cost about 1 crore of rupees, if I remember right. We were trying to work out the cost. Right? So what we do here is we generate some electrical current in a large frame of a transmitter. This in turn produces magnetism. This interacts with the Earth's magnetism, which produces an electrical pulse that is again sensed by a receiver just above the transmitter coil, using which we will be also able to understand the variation in subsurface geology. Right. So this was practiced very recently, about 4 or 5 years ago, by the Central Groundwater Board at 5 or 6 different sites in India. They had chosen one site in Tamil Nadu, which is Kadlur sandstone. Most of the geology students are aware of it, and wherein you have the biggest lignite mine, that is Neyveli Lignite NLC Limited. So I'm showing you this slide, wherein using this technique, we were able to understand the variation in subsurface up to greater depth. You can see the scale here, though it is not clear. This is 250 meters is here. So approximately up to 250 to 300 meters, we are able to understand the lithological variation beneath the surface. So once if you fly over the area, we get information almost on 3-dimensional way. That means as you fly across at different flight paths, we get information over the entire strip of the area over which we had carried out the survey. Hence, you can prepare nice 3-dimensional model, or you can create cross section wherever you want, as you see here. This is another advanced method, that is electromagnetic method. One more technique which can be carried out at a very small site, that is ground penetrating radar. Ground penetrating radar help work on the principle of transmitting radar waves and how the radar waves are getting reflected back to the surface. Based on the time difference, we try to understand the location of different reflecting rays. Right. So using which you can precisely understand the stratigraphy of the region beneath the surface. However, the limitation here is you cannot go beyond 20 to 30 meters. Suppose if the information which we need is very crucial, right, then we can deploy this method to understand how some small variation, minor variation in the lithological formation affect the groundwater flow can be estimated by this method. This also we had used at different sites. They are also published. You can have a look at it. Then the most sophisticated one is known as nuclear magnetic resonance imaging, which is very expensive. I have not used this, right? In which the greatest advantage is, unlike the previous method that work on some proxy signal, that means electrical resistivity will depend on the moisture content. If there is more moisture, resistivity is very less. Whereas in this method, the signal which we get is directly dependent on the hydrogen nuclei that are present in the formation. So, fortunately, hydrogen is not a very common constituent in the geological formation. If it is present, it has to be present only along with the water. Hence, we can decipher the presence of water or absence of water when you do this survey which in turn will help us to estimate the properties of the formation. That means we can determine the porosity as well as permeability of the formation can be estimated. As an example, I am showing you one laboratory study carried out by this group of people, right? When the depth of aquifer changes, you can see completely different signal which we. So this technique precisely gives us the quantum of water that is available beneath the surface that can be used to understand the hydraulic conductivity as well as porosity of the formation. Then another method which is helpful to us is to understand the variation in the mass of groundwater stored beneath the surface using gravity methods. That means when the groundwater table rises over that area, the mass of the earth or mass beneath that particular area increases. Hence, if you simply continuously measure the gravity of the earth at the same site, that is also going to be affected by the fluctuation in water table. So this principle is used in this method. That means what is known as Gray's experiment, which is gravity recovery and climate experiment. I was fortunate enough to visit the laboratory a few years ago. Right? What we have done is we have launched two satellites. Right? These satellites are likely to bounce depending upon the variation in the Earth's gravity. Wherever the gravity is less, the satellite will move up. Wherever the gravitational pull is more, it will come down. So using this technique also, now we are able to understand the variation in the Earth's gravity over the entire globe. So you can see here, these are the two gravity satellites, GRACE 1 and GRACE 2. They are two satellites are made to follow each other, mainly to correct our data. That precise location at each and every moment is monitored by a minimum of 3 or 4 global positioning satellites, which are stationed all over the world. So wherever they are, these two GRACE satellites, they will have connectivity with 3 or more GPS satellites. So we will know precise elevation of the satellites, using which today we are able to understand how the groundwater mass is changing over different times. So here you can see output of this data at different months for the same site, right? So every month, if the gravity is varying, it has to be only because of the variation in moisture content. So using this, we are able to today understand very quickly how the groundwater table is fluctuating over the entire Earth. We are also working on these lines, right, in Chennai. We are carrying out a work on as a part of a DST climate change project. We are trying to understand. Here you can see the red ones are the variation in gravity value in different times, right? The satellite was launched in 2012, even now it is functioning well. So from 2002 to 2016, how the gravity varies with respect to time, it has to be related to groundwater table fluctuation, and the blue one shows fluctuation in the sea level adjacent to Chennai. We are also trying to validate the interpretation made by using the GRACE data by the observed groundwater level. The blue line here indicates the observed groundwater level in different wells located within our study site. We are trying to compare with that. So this is another sophisticated technique wherein we are able to understand the loss or gain of groundwater with respect to time over the entire Earth. And we can also make use of remote sensing techniques. All of us make use of remote sensing techniques for various purposes. In hydrogeology also, it can be of greater use. Here is an example wherein we had carried out intensive field study also in a small site in Telangana, and we compared that with the different different information which we had collected from the satellite derived data, especially like the density of dikes in the region, density of fractures, And this was also published in a journal, right? For details, you can have a look at it. We wanted to see how the dikes control the flow of groundwater. So we used to teach that dikes are going to be obstructing the flow of groundwater. At this site, we got a different result. So here you can see water table is very shallow here in this site, whereas the dike in the upper part is very much weathered, due to which dikes were not functioning like a subsurface barriers, but instead they were allowing groundwater to flow. Here again, we had used remote sensing with an intensive field investigation. The same site, we had also used remote sensing to understand the orientation of rose diagram. You can see the rose diagrams. The structural analysis was carried out by intensively studying the fracture pattern at different sites, and that we compared with the overall lineament pattern we have observed from the remote sensing. I'm just giving you a highlight that remote sensing is also very, very helpful to understand the groundwater condition in a region. Another sophisticated technique is use of radar satellites, right? Here we had made use of synthetic aperture radar satellite to understand deformation in the Earth's surface. If you take confined aquifers, right, as you see here, right, I should have acknowledged this was also carried out by one of my students. Maybe on the next page it will be there. Right, when you pump large amount of water from a very thick confined aquifer, as the piezometric surface goes down, the confining layer will also lose part of the water to the lower aquifer. So the confining layer, which is usually clay, so clay will shrink when it loses water. As the clay shrinks, the surface, land surface also will go down. They may get deformed, which we call it as land subsidence. We use this technique to understand, as a part of our ISRO project, we carried out a study to understand how the land is getting deformed in a part of Kolkata city. The principle here is the same satellite passes through different lines. Using the radar reflections, you can determine the elevation of the Earth surface. Right? So, as the satellite passes over the same terrain different times, you will be able to compare the elevation of the terrain at different times. So, in this study, we compared what was the elevation in 2003, what was the elevation in 2005, 7, and 10, and using which we try to understand how the land is getting deformed. Here is a steady site, right? As an example, I'm showing you, right? This picture is interesting. So here you can see, based on the processing of the synthetic aperture radar data, the land is getting deformed at this rate at different paces, right? Suppose if you see the brown color, the land is going down in the velocity of so many millimeters per annum between the years 2003 to 2010. This indicates maximum region area of land subsidence is this, right? Over there you have very low piezometric. So it is a clear indication that over pumping of groundwater, you can see the piezometric surface is declining, and that corresponds to the region where we have deciphered land subsidence. So here again you can see the land was somewhere here, it is here today. That means about, it's a particularly exaggerated scale. We need not be very much worried, but it has gone down by about 5 centimeters. So this technique can also be used to understand the subsurface. So this girl did a PhD on this. Another method, which is much more simpler for a beginner, we can make use of this simple vulnerability assessment models. Right? That means you use certain parameters like this, and they are all basically numbers. We try to combine them in different manner to arrive at spatial variation in the combination of these numbers. That will give us which region of our study site is more vulnerable for, let us say, pollution. Right? So there are different authors, even they have suggested different methods in this work. Right? We compared all this. Right? It was also published. Right? Using which we try to understand how the temporal variation in the data which we have today in India, which is very, very important, how the vulnerability gets changed is the most important thing. This can also be used by all of us. Then contamination movement, transport of contaminants is a big issue. Still, it is not very well understood because of the scale issue. We talk in several square kilometer area, but even a small bacteria present in the formation also play with that, and a small fracture, as you can see here, from 1 minute, from a minute scale, less than millimeter scale. These play a major role. This is 1 meter scale, 100 meters, major fractures, fissures. All of them makes this study of solute transport process very interesting. This is also for future research. Then geochemical modeling. So how the chemistry of groundwater changes beneath the surface during recharge process or during lateral flow can also be carried out by us, right, to understand the processes responsible using which you can also extrapolate what is going to happen in future. So this is one such study wherein another PhD student carried out a study to understand how the chemistry of water changes during the process of recharge from surface into the various processes has been delineated, as you can see here. Then that can be modeled, right, from a irrigated area, how much of contaminants or solutes are moving after the farmer irrigates the area. So this study is also published. So once if you carry out modeling, you can also predict. Suppose if I'm going to apply more fertilizer, what is going to happen? This is another area of study, right? Suppose if he is going to crop 2 times, or if he is going to increase the concentration by double time application of fertilizer, what is going to happen in future can be done by such geochemical modeling tools. And lastly, I'll talk about groundwater modeling, which is another important area for research, which is an excellent tool to understand how the aquifer system will behave for changes in the recharge and discharge. That means it is something like in a mathematical form, a simplified version of a real aquifer system. So yeah, this is the geological formation. We divide them depending upon the lithology into small cells. In each cell, we carry out the computation of inflow and outflow. So using which we can understand and predict how the groundwater flow is going to change, how the level is going to change, how the concentration of groundwater is going to change due to rainfall or due to pumping. As an example, I think I put one couple of slides about our study in Chennai, north of Chennai. The region is very much affected by seawater intrusion. Here you can see approximately up to 10 to 15 kilometer seawater has intruded in the aquifer. What can be done? We carried out a modeling study. So we suggested several methods. These are all some of the methods. Many students worked on this. One student worked on the percolation pond. Another student worked on the study of a check dam. So these two rivers, we are now constructing several check dams to improve the recharge. Right? This one slide I'm showing on the percolation pond, another slide also on percolation pond, wherein we had continuous monitoring for 3 years using sophisticated instrumentation, weather station, automatic water level recorders in different piezometers. Then the next study was on check dam. This study was also carried out in intensively a PhD research. So combining this, another student carried out a modeling work. So if so much of water is going to be recharged along all the check dams, how the system is going to respond was carried out using groundwater modeling. We also thought, suppose if you rejuvenate a small lake here, if you link these two rivers, all this can be studied only by mathematical modeling. So conceptually, we thought if you put so many check dams, the water level which is in blue as on today will increase to this. Thereby, seawater will be pushed back toward the sea. This was carried out with a sophisticated modeling approach, as you see here. I don't want to go into details. I'll just share some of the results quickly. Right. So this is how we validated the model. So there are two aquifers there for upper aquifer. You can see, as example, you can see here, this is the observed one is the black dots and the gray one is the result which we have simulated using the mathematical model. So as both are reasonably comparable, we can go ahead for prediction. So here we had also seen how the, fortunately the animation is not working, doesn't matter. So we have simulated how the seawater is coming inside during summertime, how it goes toward the seaside during the immediately after the monsoon, right? So using the model we predicted, suppose if you go in for all the recharge measures, by the end of 2030, by the end of this decade, water table will get recovered to this. Rather than this slide will be much more interesting. In 1969, this was the extent of seawater intrusion. 90, 2000, 2004. In 2004, they closed some of the pumping station, closed somewhere here, due to which there is a marginal improvement in the marginal reduction in the area of intrusion. Then in 2015, as a part of a DST project, the two students worked, as I told you, they came out and said seawater has improved up to this. Our modeling study indicate by the end of this decade, if you go in for if you complete all the check dams, the situation will improve by. These are all some of the advanced techniques which I wanted to share with the young researchers. Still, there are many things that can be carried out in hydrogeology. There are many unsolved questions, right? Especially to understand subsurface. Still, even today, we don't know how the fracture patterns are built. So, though there are several modeling techniques to understand the fracture pattern, we are still not sure how the groundwater is moving, especially in the basalts or in massive rocks through the fracture system. Unsaturated zone flow is also very interesting. In unsaturated flow, uh, mixing of different phases, right? Maybe a air bubble or a volatile matter, right? Maybe a gas, water, solids, still not been looked into in detail. And microscopic issues, as I told you here, a presence of certain algae, that also going to affect the flow and their role on a regional flow. Needs a lot of studies. And though, as an example, I told you some recharge structures in India, everywhere we are constructing recharge structures, but whether we can automate their maintenance, right? Even I had visited a site in Dresden in Germany where they have put some automated system, but even there they said it got failed. That means every year that will just plow and remove, wash the sand and put it back, right? Something like automatic system they have installed, but even that they say they are unable to sustain that. Can we work on such lines? And can we also think of, though we are all geologists, we should also think on with the current revolution of use of AI, it should be artificial intelligence or machine learning or biomimicry. That means in those days when the several plants used to survive on difficult conditions, ants used to survey, they are able to locate water sources, right? It is one of the dowsing method we have been taught, right? Look for some ant structures, right? Can we use some nature-based algorithms to understand groundwater flow and transport of contaminants, especially bacteria, virus, along with the groundwater is also another interesting area. Impact of climate change. These are all some of the things which I thought of today. I typed in the morning, right? Thank you very much for the opportunity. Some of our research gained attention in the media too. Thank you very much for the nice opportunity.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your elaboration on recent researchers in groundwater. In Oriya, there is a phrase, Jala hi jivana. That is, water is life.
Okay.
So actually, water is
Okay. Yeah,
life.
not only in Oriya, I think it is applicable for the world. What you said is applicable for the world.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your nice
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank
Uh,
you. Thank you.
due
My
to
regards to all the faculty. Congratulations to all of you as well as the Vice Chancellor. Thank you very much.
due to time constraint, we are not taking any questions from the participants.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
thank you
Okay.
very much, sir.
Thank
Now,
you. Thank